Happiness is beautiful. It's a kind of reality. Happiness through the high school. Happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchian, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is always happening and always will be the point of it all. Today we're going to be doing our Happiness Off the Cuff number 2, and we're very fortunate to have again with us Becker Holstein. Barbara just taped the show with us, and it went so well, we decided to have her join us to do this show. So welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back.
Great. Okay, and as I explained, basically during these shows, we just free ourselves up to talk about whatever we want to related to becoming happier, making the world happier. So, who wants to start?
Well, we were actually chatting, and I found this interesting, and maybe everyone else would like to hear. We were talking about happiness isn't quite the right words, and I brought up, how about emotional competence? And you shook your head no, and then you came up with...
Well, the expression that I came up with after much agony was, the whole expression was achieving positive states of well-being again and again. This basically says it for me. In other words, we do have to reach a level of achievement, which is kind of similar to competency. If we don't know how to get there, we can't be there. Once we are there, and we have positive states, which are ways that our minds, bodies, emotions, and the external world all come together in a way that we experience a positive state internally, then we need to repeat it again and again.
Yes.
Now, this to me is as close to reality as I could get to explain what the enchanted self is. My lingo is the enchanted self, and what it really is recurring positive states of happiness. Oh, see, now I'm slipping into happiness. But positive states of well-being again and again.
Right, because we use happiness though, for example, the words that the researchers prefer is subjective well-being, right? But linguistically, it's not very facile. One can be happy, we can get happier, we can be happiest. So in terms of popularizing the phrase, happiness is good in that sense. But I think we're referring to is how to get people to understand its meaning and significance.
It's very important, and what I did is when I wrote my first book, The Enchanted Self of Positive Therapy, I was so excited I went out and I mass-produced 100 T-shirts, and they all had this lovely lady on them that was kind of my Enchanted Self lady at the time, this very nice drawing, and I put on them achieving positive states of well-being again and again. And I don't think most of the people understood what I was saying on these T-shirts.
If we can draw an analogy, let's say we're learning to play tennis, right? Somebody teaches us how to serve, right? All right, we know it, right? But only if we practice that serve time and time again do we know it well enough to integrate it whenever we need to use it. So I imagine happiness is the very same way.
Absolutely, and I think that those people that are naturally happy, I think there may be a genetic predisposition. Research, I think, verifies that. But those people that are happy don't really realize that they're practicing all the time. For example, I know a woman who's a wonderful teacher, and I've been with her. I'm her friend. I've also done some study with her. Every time she sees someone, her face just lights up and, oh, hello, how are you? I was thinking of you. I missed you. And what happens is the other person feels great, but she also gets a resurging of good feeling.
I think that's one of the big pluses of happiness, and it works. In other words, I think what you're talking about is happiness as being causative rather than as an effect, as what most people... In other words, most people are trying to achieve happiness by effect. I hope that you'll be good to me so that I can feel some sense of happiness, rather than, the hell with what you think, I love being with you. You're great. I'm happy just being with you. Now, don't you think that has a cause back to me? In other words, I'm really creating my own experience with you by my experience.
That's right. And what else do we really, we live together in a world, but our internal states are really what we take with us.
Right, and it's very curious because, we talked before again how biologically we are like hardwired to seek happiness, to avoid pain, seek pleasure. But, statistically here in America we're like only 70% happy on average. We're happy only about 54% of the time. So for two parts of this, why are we not nearly as good as we could be at getting what we most want from life? And then what is the message that we have to get out to the world, that the world needs to understand to help us better do this?
Well, I can think of, I'm sorry, you were about to...
No, well, to answer one of those two parts, conditioning. That's one of our biggest problems that's in the way all the time, conditioning. Past, present, and whatever, but conditioning is what I feel is part of the problem.
Well, I think that definitely is. I was going to speak about myself in the sense that often I'm my own best case study. I think by nature that I am and was a very happy child, and by genetic disposition I'm certainly normal. I don't know if I'm high normal, but I was normal. However, because I was an only child till I was 11, and because my mother was rightly so training to be a teacher, my father was a professor and an administrator, I was alone a lot. Came home, the whole key around the neck, and I remember one time I had left the key on the other side of the keyhole. Now I couldn't even get in the house. I had to push the key out. I had to drop it on a newspaper. I had good creative thinking. Pull out the newspaper, get in the house. And I was lonely. So I didn't always have a good state of well-being, but not because I had any mental illness going on. It was situational difficulties. I really needed people around me. So that is probably one of the reasons why I'm very sensitive to how people are living. If you're isolating, you're watching TV, you're using the computer too much, you don't really go out to restaurants or people's homes, you don't socialize, you may be conditioning yourself to states that are not particularly healthy.
So in a sense, like even though what we most want, what we really want is happiness, other people, like according to the research again, are our most important source of happiness, but we're apparently not, as a world, very good at connecting with others.
We're not, and we've lost a lot. I mean, you're too young, but you and I can share in this. We both probably remember the immigrant neighborhoods. I certainly do. My Babu, as we called her in New Haven, she lived on Redfield Street. It was an immigrant neighborhood. And we went there every Saturday or Sunday, and we went, we had meals. We had Sunday night supper and, sat together. And some of these things were so routine, they weren't even noticed. Very often nowadays, there is no routine of neighborhood connection or connecting with kin. Big hole.
But all right, there may be more to it than that, because again, according to research, 50 years ago we weren't any happier than we are today.
But were they dealing with other struggles? For example, how do you make a living? How do you really upgrade even speaking English? I mean, there were just so many problems. But what may have happened is certain problems got corrected, and then other things that hadn't been problems became problems.
Yeah, that's probably the answer.
Well, I must say that when we talk about happiness, and that's what we're doing now, I know that for me, although I was always involved with understanding happiness, and even wrote a book in 1988 before I was truly happy.
What was the book?
Food for Thought. I mean, I said happiness is a decision in that book. I said that you have everything you need to be happy, you just don't have the realization possibly. That's all you really need. But there was a lot of thoughts that when I look back, I said, wow, I wrote that, and I wasn't even full-time happy then. So but it was pointing me to the way. And then the one day when I really did become happy, it was just an awareness that, hey, I'm happy. This is a great day. I feel good. And immediately I realized, hey, how long can this last? I mean, I wasn't insane. I was just feeling well-being. I was happy, emotionally competent, whatever phrase you want to use. But I realized that could disappear into thin air, and it will, is what I knew. So that I only did one thing back then. I think this is like the upside down, backwards approach. I don't know what to call it. But here's what I did. I said, okay, I feel good. I know what that feels like, and it's great. There's no greater feeling than this in the world. Would I want to lose this? I would have to be crazy to lose this. I knew that much. So the only thing I did was I decided I would be aware to what I would give away my happiness to. In other words, I now had a material wealth. I now had wealth. I had an abundance of wealth, and I knew what I had, and I was just going to be observant of what I paid it away to, or what had to come along that was so terrible that I would squander all my resources to. So with that in mind, I started to be aware that life presented many difficulties, many problems, many situations, many things I didn't like, many people I'd rather not have been confronting. But in every one of those situations, I was aware enough not to give up my happiness, which I now say is I was aware enough not to give away my power.
So you probably have very strong ego capacities. And if we looked into your background further in your childhood, you couldn't have even written that book in '88 without certain very strong themes that were already at work. Now, a lot of my clients, their ego structure is a little more flimsy, oftentimes for women for the right reasons. If you're caring for a child and you've just had a massage and you now feel great, but the child has a fever, you have to make certain decisions that must take the child into the forefront. And you may end up sleeping 1 hour that night and you'll be wrecked and the mood is gone, et cetera, et cetera. So what I teach people is like a little further out than what you're saying. I will teach people, look, this internal state is so great. When you lose it, and I'm sorry to tell you, you will, just as I have, let's not get discouraged. Let's understand more the mechanisms, why you lost it, and how you can get it back. And whether, how realistically, and will you need to do certain things, will you need to place yourself with new people, or is it much more simple? If your kid had 103, he's now better the next week. The next time you go for a massage, realistically, the feeling may last 48 hours, not 2 hours.
I think also a lot of times we need to realize, like, let's say we have a certain life situation with a job, people we're with on a daily basis, and periodically, maybe not as often as we want, but periodically we're feeling really good. That can tell us that yes, improvements in our work and in our other areas of life might improve our life even more, but that can tell us that we have the potential, even in our present circumstance, to be much happier, because if we can just replicate those moments.
Well, I know for me, as a positive psychologist, of course, I think that I look for ways to help my clients feel better and their faces light up. And, of course, it's reconfirming for me, and I get an uplift, as they feel more powerful and more courageous. And the other, just a quirky thing that has happened for me that I'll bring in is that I was very artistic as a child and very dramatic, and I really wanted to be an actress and whatever, and my parents said, no, I had to go and be a teacher now because I wasn't married, and this was the situation. They weren't going to support me. I was 21, I was finishing college, and now that was over. And so I was crushed into the teaching field, although ironically it's ended up being a great platform for me to teach what I need to teach and become a psychologist later on. But the artistic urge is there. It's there in the earrings I'll pick, the clothing, the colors, the way, things about me. So I felt as the Enchanted Self project went on that women needed something from me aside from just my therapeutic skills and my books and stuff, but I needed something. So what I came up with was the Enchanted Self necklace. And so I don't know, I don't have a piece of velvet or anything to really show it, but this is one version, and it has the ES for Enchanted Self on it. And then I'm wearing another version, which is a blue stone, a little darker stone.
That's nice.
And it has the ES for Enchanted Self. And my dream, my vision is that women will wear these necklaces, and it identifies them as having come home to the heart and the energy that goes with being an enchanted self, which is, i.e., a person who can achieve positive states of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful, yeah, because it's a reminder.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Interestingly enough, as you're showing the heart, and you're talking about the heart and energy, our website is being revamped. John Van Gorder, a very talented human being, a very extraordinary person, created a logo that I sort of threw together. I said, well, put a happy face on a red heart, and you pretty much got what I think it's all about. And he created this beautiful logo of a heart, with a happy face in it. And again, we're back to the heart. I think the heart speaks very loudly for happiness or even well-being. I think we're too involved up here, and this isn't always our friend. But I think the heart has a different quality. I don't know what your feelings are about that.
Absolutely. Our hearts are so responsive and so loving, and so they know what we need, and they love others. And we just get garbage up here, like I just tell my clients, just get a sense of humor. Okay, you have to run off, there's a voice inside criticizing me. Will I get there? Even this morning, will I get there on time? I probably got the wrong directions off the MapQuest.
Sure.
Okay, fine, you said what you had to say.
Right. Yeah, and going back to conditioning, I mean, we can understand why. I mean, we get into school, and as kids, we want to have fun and all, but a lot of school is about getting good grades, just performing, and this is all mind work. It's not really what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the mind is something like the tides. They roll in, they roll out, but with our minds, they roll in, they roll in, they roll, and pretty soon we have such a high tide, we're overwhelmed. I don't think we let anything out anymore, and we have to realize that our thoughts are not us. They just come in like a tide, and we could just let them go again.
And nor are our feelings always us. The one of the wonderful things about a bad feeling is that if you wait a while, it too will pass.
You remind me, the first time that Rabbi Pliskin ever called me, shocked and thrilled me that I got a phone call from Israel. It was so wonderful talking with him that here I had what I would consider a genius in happiness. Right. He and I talk a mile a minute when we start talking, and I had to ask him. I said, Rabbi Pliskin, is happiness a feeling? And he says yes. I was sort of sizing him up, and I said, Rabbi Pliskin, is happiness a skill? He said yes. I said, Rabbi Pliskin, you know happiness, because many people will try to say happiness is this and not that, but he right. like so many, I think, wonderful teachers, understands that happiness there's many facets to it, and that when you're holding one, it doesn't mean that it's not something else.
Exactly.
And happiness is a lot bigger than we can contain it to be.
Yes, and it can infuse, it can spread. I mean, a lot of the major theories and certainly in Judaism are tied into hope and prayer that this infusion of goodwill and good feelings will be part of the final destiny of men,
Well, yeah, let's
mankind.
consider that. Let's consider that. What, for example, as a world is limiting our happiness the most? I'm sure it's more than one thing. And then what can we do together, as a society, as a world, to help us all become much happier?
Well, I think knowledge is a central base to a better world, and I think happiness is part of knowledge. But I think it's that emotional competence that can be most beneficial to mankind, and it could go to some things that we really don't talk much about, like virtuousness, values, real values, compassion, kindness, respect. These aren't things that the world thinks very much of. But yet, when we complain about life, these are the very things that are undermined, and these are the things that we say we must have. I think we're saying we must have them, but we're not realizing we must give them to have them.
And we must teach them.
We must teach them.
There's a lot of work. For example, there's a lot of work in learning how not to gossip and learning how not to break someone's spirit. You know, and in Judaism, again, it can be considered murder to put someone down with a tongue, you know, that you have...
I mean, killing them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And as a culture, you know, these are weak. These are values are not emphasized. And they can easily be so. You could have every nursery school collecting from parents and teaching parents how to notice what the child did well at 3, and, you know, then they put it on a little card, it goes up on the bulletin board, and, you know,
Sure.
they get a smiley face, whatever. It's a matter of education.
Well, I think the educational process needs to expand, and I think it is, because I think what was once religious, or as you said in the other program, that's based in the world's real religions, you know, and spirituality is slowly, and psychology, some of psychology, or the recent, is slowly emerging into common sense. I think when spiritual values, religious values can become common sense for our well-being, then we can start to understand that some of these things have always been there, but we've never understood that they're so beneficial to us now.
Right.
And I think it's not something you go to on a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday and say, okay, now I'm in a house of worship or prayer. Every moment could be a blessing in life. Every moment could be a moment of gratitude if we look at life with happiness, because there is real meaning in happiness. It paints a different canvas.
It does. And I take a lot of time. That's one reason why I tend to be late. But when I go out in the morning, like I might just go over to a bush or a flower or something and kind of look at it and say hello and touch it. And, you know, like I try to get back to some of the state of a child, because a lot of these things you're talking about, children intuitively know how to do, and they also know when people are good and people are bad. They have a sense of what is the real truth. And then we kind of mix it up for them.
Yeah, so I think probably, you know, in terms of explaining why our world is where we are, maybe that you know, explains it very clearly, that our process of making our children culturized, of, you know, bringing them through our educational system, through our workforce, just distracts them from what we all knew as young children. That, I mean, it's important. I mean, very young children are very empathic. They're very compassionate. They sense the pain and the pleasure of other children. So in terms of, like, you know, just education, in terms of what we need to learn, I guess we need to relearn, you know, what we're here about, and understand that these education, money, success, all these things are wonderful things as tools. But when we substitute them as goals rather than understanding them as tools, then we forget our basic purpose.
And go ahead.
No.
You can do a lot with kids and mothers and fathers. Very simple training. For example, if you're going to call in your kids, Johnny, Mary, you've got to get in now. Stop playing. Stop doing this. Stop looking at the tree. Whatever it is. Stop batting a ball. The parent can be taught to say, I know you're having a good time, or, wow, that was a good throw, but I need you to do something else now. Later you'll get back to it, or we'll make sure you have more time. It's the way it's said.
Yeah. Who was the woman that hangs out with apes and
Oh, yeah.
Jane Goodall.
Jane Goodall.
Mm-hmm.
There's a story about Jane Goodall that when she was very young, she loved nature, and she was out in her backyard, and she found a bunch of earthworms. So at night, her mother was tucking her into bed, and she said, "Good night, Jane." She said, "Good night, Mom." And as she was bringing the cover over, she noticed that Jane had brought something like 7 earthworms to bed with her. And really, to support what you said, at that moment in time, Jane said that if her mother had said, "What are you, crazy? Get these earthworms out of your bed. You're messing up the bed. You're dirty, What are you thinking? What are you, stupid?" Or anything that she could have said. She said to Jane, "Now, Jane, don't you think these earthworms would much rather go to sleep out in the soil where they'd be more comfortable?" And she said, "Yes, Mom." And so she did. And so she thinks that the way her mother responded to her might have been the difference between who she grew up to be as opposed to what might have happened with a different kind of reaction. I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we do a lot to support one another, or we could do more, but that's the best thing about being happy, is that when you're happy, I feel that you're sort of a support mechanism for others, because when I'm happy, all I want to do is give my happiness to others, and that really increases mine. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I don't lose anything by it. But I think too many people are trying to find their happiness by diminishing others.
And it's also, we get a lot from at least attempting to increase the happiness in the world. But we've only got a little under a minute left. Barbara, would you like to give your contact information?
Sure. It's www.enchantedself.com, one word, Enchanted Self. Feel free to write to me. You'll find all the information there. And also I have an 877-B, the letter B as in boy, joyful. That's an 877-B joyful number. You can contact me, and I'd love to see you and hear from you.
All right, great. Thanks. I appreciate Barbara. Thanks for being our guest. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us better enjoy life. This is George and Lionel saying be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next time here on The Happiness Show.
Happiness is powerful. It's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is just a name. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.